Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. If you want to learn how to support this channel and its mission to normalize atheism and deconversion, stay tuned to the end of the video. Today I'm responding to a video entitled 6 Apologetic Hacks for How to Interact with Atheists by Darwin to Jesus. The thumbnail says 6 rules for debating atheists, so okay, debating, interacting. We have rules, hacks, I don't know. Now, as a content creator, I'm not trying to respond to the kind of disparity between those two statements, but, I do that sometimes myself where the title is different than my thumbnail because of necessity and size, but, it kind of gives are we interacting with atheists or are we debating with atheists? So I guess I'm a little confused. So at the same time, I'm also wondering about the word hack. A hack to me is an easy button to get past certain things, whereas a rule is more of, a rule of engagement I can understand. And so I'm a little confused going to this video, and I'm trying not to let my own personal bias slip out early on here because I've had dealings with this creator, and as far as I've watched him in action a couple of times, so we'll see what happens. But take it away, Darwin to Jesus.
This is Darwin to Jesus. Welcome back to the channel. So the other day, a Christian asked me for advice on how to do apologetics when talking to atheists.
My answer, don't. I'd rather that you just have a conversation with me, save the apologetic arguments and the evangelistic sales pitches for other people that are buying, especially me, because as a former Christian for 40 years and a minister for 20 of those years, I've heard it all because I've done it all and I've used it all when it comes to witnessing for atheists myself. So yeah, just don't. But we wouldn't have much of a video if we stopped here, would we? So let's continue.
As a former atheist who has spent hundreds of hours discussing God and Christianity with atheists, I thought I could make a video to share what I've learned. So here are 6 rules for doing apologetics with atheists.
Discussing. Pretty generous word you're giving yourself, but okay, I will go on. But it is rules, or is it hacks? Hack implies that you're doing something to make something super easy. Rules implies some sort of guideline for yourself, a rule of engagement to use when talking with atheists. That's fair. I have rules on how I engage with people in general and how I handle my comments, so I'll let that go because I think everybody eventually has to have rules about how they're going to interact with people. It's how you keep from going nuts about it. I mean, I could challenge whether you are really an atheist or not, but I'm not going to do that or not. I mean, I hope one of your rules is to listen to and accept a person's story, but I know from watching the video that's not one of them, so I guess we're going to go with what we go. From some of your other videos, I also know that you're a presuppositionalist apologist, so I'm not really nuts about that either because I've had my own bad experiences with them. So that's not in your favor either, but I won't do that because I tend to just accept people's stories about themselves in general until they demonstrate to me that maybe they weren't really something that they said they were by some of the things they say. But enough waffling for me. Let's get to your rules.
Rule number 1, know what kind of atheist you're dealing with. Not every atheist is the same. Some are conservative, some are pleasant and friendly, and some are absolutely terrible. To categorize the spectrum of atheists, I've made an atheist tier list that explains the different types you're likely to encounter. I'll link that in the description. Knowing the kind of atheist you're dealing with is crucial so you don't waste your time.
Now, when I first heard about this rule, when it first came up, I thought maybe we were going to get to discuss the difference between soft and hard atheists. But no, it's about the attitude of the atheist. That said, a tier list, really? Basically what you're saying is, this is what level of tolerance do they have for my apologetics, whether they're nice or not, or whether or not they're going to be an easy target to accept what I'm saying. It's almost like, if they like to talk to me and don't interrupt too often, then they are better atheists. Some of these names are also, shall I say, a little ad hominem, a form of name calling, housefly atheist, black hole atheist, unicorn atheist. Come on, man. I get human beings categorizing people so that they can better know the differences between things and how to deal with different people. And you can also sort them out, from an evangelistic apologist point of view. I guess you would want to sort them out to decide what kind of approach or what kind of evidence you want to present. There's an implication that is passive, that in order to determine what type of atheist you're dealing with, listening would be very important. And so that's kind of a positive, I guess, because you're at least admitting that you're going to have to at least listen to the atheist long enough to figure out what type of atheists that they are. But I suspect that there's a different motivation when I first saw this video, and I turned out to be right. So let's hit rule number 2 where that happens.
Rule number 2. Only engage with certain kinds of atheists. Once you understand the different types of atheists, you can recognize which type you're dealing with and use that discernment to choose who you do apologetics with. You should only engage A, B, and maybe some high C tier atheists. Engaging with anyone below that will likely lead to frustration. To identify the atheist not worth talking to, look for red flags like loaded questions, demands for proof, insults, reliance on rhetoric and sophistry, or attempts to control the conversation. Instead, engage with atheists who are chill, ask fair questions, and avoid straw-manning you.
Yeah, so this is really about choosing the appropriate target for your gospel gun. You're looking for atheists that are kind enough to listen to you, don't really have a thought about the issue of God at all, and they never really thought about it. This is typical for most evangelistic methods and apologetics. Please don't make me witness to somebody hard or somebody who has actually answers for my questions. I want an easy win. It's justification of cowardice, if you ask me, and disobedience to both the Great Commission and 1 Peter 3:15 at this point. You're not respecting the atheist viewpoint enough to actually engage it. You only want kindness toward yourself, but don't want to demonstrate kindness to others, even though 1 Peter 3:15 tells you to do so. But you're not going to follow your commander, Jesus, and going in the world and preaching the gospel to every creature, no exceptions, not those nasty, hard atheists. Please, God, don't make me go through that. From my perspective, great, you're just not going to talk to me because you have classified me out of it, so thanks for that. But based on the Bible you claim to believe, do these first 2 rules violate the scriptures? Yeah, I think they do. But let's get to the real juicy part of this rule here, your little list here at the end of this rule. Loaded questions. Yeah, I don't like loaded questions either. When a creation asks me loaded questions to get me a little frustrated, I get a little upset about that too. Do you believe that we really came from a rock is one of my favorites. Stupid loaded questions like that are intended as gotchas. Yeah, they do bother me, so fair point. Demands for proof. Proof and evidence are 2 different things, so I get the notion, but why wouldn't you want to respond to a demand for proof? I mean, this is an open door to present your case and give your case for the reason that's hoped within you. And it's evidence and proof that many apologists claim they have. Why don't you have some? It seems like it would be an absolute open invitation for you to present your case. Insults, rhetoric, and sophistry. Yeah, I don't like those either. Like when a theist tells me I don't have any morality because I'm an atheist, or they are presuppositionalists putting certain things they believe in this special pleading category box because they, quote, are obviously true to me and don't require evidence or proof. That, kind of self-inflicted sophistry at a high level, and it's annoying, and so I feel you about that. Control of the conversation. Well, this is where I have to start to get a little bit, I know you too well there, Darwin to Jesus. And I have to say that if you're going to change your ways, because I have seen you get upset when you can't control the conversation. I get it as apologetics, particularly those who use evangelistic techniques. These techniques are by design attempts to control the conversation and stay on script. I know, I used to use them. Getting off the script for somebody like Ray Comfort or anybody else who uses these sort of things is bad because it means they have to withdraw and they can't engage in an honest conversation about the topic anymore because they're off script and they have to figure out a way to get it back on script. So you're basically left with atheists you feel good about and who you feel don't represent you and aren't going to be meanies. Maybe I would listen to apologists more if they followed this advice. Of course, then they probably wouldn't talk to me very much. As for straw manning, I have matches and I love to use them. But your tier list seems like a good tool to straw man atheists, so let's start with that and burn that down. Just saying.
Rule number 3. Don't expect them to change their mind. Atheists are often the most stubborn people you can witness to. They reject God because they think they are God.
What?
So the idea that you might be right and they are wrong is not even a possibility to 99.99999% of them. Don't expect them to change their minds. If their minds ever do change, it will likely be far in the future and you won't know about it. It took me years to change my mind and become a Christian.
I thought you said straw manning was bad. I'm stubborn, like openly admitted, but that's probably because I'm Dutch, German, and a bunch of other Northern European descent that tends to be stubborn about everything. But I don't think I'm God. That's a complete straw man of atheists. That's your opinion. So rules for thee, but not for me, is kind of what I'm getting the vibe from you there, Daniel. This is where I'm genuinely angry at you, Daniel. This is anti-atheist propaganda. I mean, I don't believe that I'm a God. I don't believe in a God, so why would I believe that I am one? This shows a real insecurity about your position because you can't accurately represent atheists here and then deal with the accurate representation. The whole rule you took as nothing more than an opportunity to poison the well against atheists, so that your Christian listener is now going to think atheists are stubborn, closed-minded, and not going to change their mind right away. This whole section makes me literally have to ask at this point, were you really an atheist? I mean, this all smacks of insecurity so that you have to paint your former self as stubborn. You thought you were a god. You thought, that it took you a long time for you to come around to atheists, whatever long time means to you. I don't know how old you are, but to me a long time is probably more than yours. You sound like you are engaged in a character attack against your former self that you see as an atheist so you can emotionally justify your current position as a Christian. I mean, I try not to do this. I look at my former self as a Christian as more as somebody who was deceived and deluded by a message that doesn't have any evidence for its truth. And, that's kind of downplaying myself in a sense. But I'm not saying that I was completely evil or completely a bad human being or whatever else. I'm certainly not saying that I was stubborn about everything, that I thought I was a god or anything else back then, or I thought I was a child of God, which is just as bad in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. It seems like you're just kind of yelling at your former self. So I have to ask, were you really an atheist or just a jerk to claim non-belief to justify being a jerk?
Rule number 4, do not give evidence.
What?
This rule will surprise many Christians, but I mean it. Atheists don't care about evidence. They only ask for it to throw it back in your face and claim it's not evidence. Only give evidence to an atheist if they're your friend, you've established mutual respect, and you're in a private conversation. Ultimately, evidence isn't going to change anyone's mind because atheism is about rebellion, not evidence.
So more poison in the well here. I get it. As a Christian, non-belief in Christ is rebellion from a theological point of view. That said, you're kind of going to take heat from both sides on this one. The atheist is going to go at you for your presuppositions here, which I have to point out is your own form of self-sophistry. You delude yourself into thinking that certain presuppositions you have don't have to be defended. That's kind of the core and heart of presuppositionalist apologetics, this kind of special pleading that you do with yourself all the time. But the theist with any Bible knowledge is going to also come after you because they're going to say, well, what about the Great Commission of going to preach the gospel to every creature? What about giving the reasons for the hope that is within you with reverence and fear? All I hear was a justification of cowardice.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
And poisoning the well more about the atheist. You didn't want to listen to atheists and with name-calling and rhetoric, but here you are engaged in rhetoric and name-calling against the atheist. But then again, not giving evidence is an easy rule to follow. The evidence for God and Christianity is really either non-existence or poor quality, so it saves you the embarrassment of presenting it and getting called out for it, which I've seen happen to you on multiple occasions.
Rule number 5, don't take anything personally. Atheists will insult you, demean you, gaslight you, denigrate our Lord, and more. Don't let it get to you. Don't take it personally. Atheists love to get the better of Christians, so if you find yourself getting upset, take a break from the conversation. If this happens often, you should probably stop engaging with atheists. They'll make a fool out of you and hurt your witness. If you're going to deal with atheists, you need very thick skin.
Yeah, some theists I deal with are the same. It goes for any kind of person in ideological space. If you're a YouTuber or in the discussing and influencing opinion, you better develop a thick skin. So I'm going to let this one go in a sense because there's a kernel of good advice here, but it's not really a hack for dealing with atheists, so it's still a bad hack. It means, you could do this with anybody. I have seen you get very insulting to people yourself. I mean, I remember the time that you basically shut down your conversation with I Killed Earl, basically because you weren't going to have a woman talk to you that way. I watched you on the Kentucky Atheist basically rage quit several times. But this continues to show you engaging and poisoning the well about atheists while at the same time not taking responsibility for your own behavior. You don't want to be insulted, but then turn around and insult the atheist. I don't have to actually have seen you in action to the point to know that you're doing this. What you're doing here is actually very poor voice to your followers. Sorry, you have this whole list of things you say atheists are doing to you. But when I look at you, you do the same thing in your channel in return. I would also point out that your insinuation that we are all gods is very similar to you saying they insult our Lord. So it's okay for you to insult me by claiming that I claim that I'm a god, to be some sort of deity, which is an insult to me, but it's not okay for me to satirize Jesus to make your point? Bruh.
Rule number 6. Know why you want to have the conversation. In these discussions, there are 3 healthy goals you can have: to convince the atheist, to convince the listener, or learn from the interaction. I recommend making your primary goal to learn from the interaction. Often, the best way to learn how to debate is through trial and error, so you can learn a lot just by applying yourself and having these conversations. But whatever your goal is, know it going in and keep it in mind. Alright, so those are the 6 rules for engaging with an atheist as a Christian apologist.
Well, I'm going to have to give credit on this one for making a final good point. But it is a good point for all conversations you might have, so it's really not a hack or a rule for dealing with atheists. It's just a good hack for dealing with human beings. Every conversation should be a learning experience, regardless of what your ideology is. And so I'll give you kudos for this one. All right, I'm going to go off script on this one. I've watched the Kentucky Atheist and ASHO deal with Daniel, a.k.a. Darwin to Jesus, many times. Haven't always participated. In fact, I don't think I've participated in one single conversation because they've all done a really good job. I just remember a lot of incidents where he rage quit, okay, and he walked away from stuff. He insinuated a lot of things about atheists. This whole video, he yells about what atheists do to him while at the same time throughout the entire video does the same thing to them. He name calls, he engages in rhetoric about atheists, he has sophistry about his own positions, but doesn't allow sophistry about other people's positions. He doesn't want you to present proof or evidence. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, you don't want that because then that would actually require you to engage in the conversation. I mean, what are you going to have in your Rule 6 as a conversation if you don't allow a discussion about the evidence? What are you going to talk about? Okay, what evidence is there for God? I mean, an atheist is looking for that. And I do genuinely wonder if you were an atheist, Daniel. I really genuinely wonder that. Because it seems to me like the way you characterize atheists is more of an attack on your former self. I am very patient with theists, okay? I don't attack my former self like this. I understand what it's like to be deluded. I understand what it's like to be mistaken or be in error. And I acknowledge that I could be in error now. And so, drawing some strength about what you used to be is actually a better way. But it's like you don't see anything in your former self that's good or right, so you have to attack it all the time. It kind of indicates that maybe you don't have a lot of self-confidence in the decision that you made. The same is true for not wanting to present evidence. Why don't you want to present evidence? It seems like you don't have a confidence. You're really, you got to develop a thick skin, but I'm going to create rules where you don't have to worry about having a thick skin because you're never going to engage an atheist with these rules.
Run away! Run away!
Okay, because you're always going to, they're DEF tier, so I'm not going to engage them. It's the sad state of presuppositional apologetics at this point. We're going to presuppose our message is true without proving it. There's certain things we're going to special plead and put our special pleading box around that we're never going to allow to be attacked. And we're going to say everybody presupposes them even though they're not self-evident to everybody else. It's self-evident that God exists. I don't know why we're debating this. Well, that's the whole point. And, if your viewpoints are so fragile that you have to put them in a special pleading box, I would say you're insecure about that. I think presuppositionalist apologists, I can say this, you're some of the most insecure people about your position ever, because you have to, in your mind, engage in this internal sophistry where you allow logical fallacies to enter your brain and see. I literally had somebody who was defend circular reasoning. I've had 3 people defend circular reasoning in just this last week, as if it's something to be defended. Like there's something good to it. No, I don't see anything. You're just going around in a circle, okay? I've had people literally defend the idea that it's not no true Scotsman to call me a non-Christian, that I never was a Christian. That's not no true Scotsman, when it literally is a no true Scotsman fallacy. You people defend this stuff. It's this internal self-delusion that faith gives you and indoctrinates you in. And I'm not saying atheists don't have their problems, but we have a very limited thing to engage with. It's just, give me evidence. Give me proof that some God exists. And every time, now I've literally got a presuppositionalist apologist here in Darwin of Jesus, a.k.a. Daniel, basically justify running away from atheism because they know that their presuppositionalist apologists their apologetics just don't work.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
Man, it's a hell of an admission, and all 6 of these rules are basically an admission of that problem. We don't really have anything, so we only want to talk to the people that we think we can actually, fool into following us. It's just, you're being dishonest with yourself, you're being dishonest with the people that you made this video for, and you're being dishonest about the atheist and with atheists. And the whole thing is wrapped up in a whole big bow of lies and logical fallacies, Daniel. Grow the hell up. This is childlike, okay? If you make a claim, you have to defend the claim. If you're going to claim there's a God, it's not a self-starter that's automatically presuppositionally true. Prove there's a God. It's all about trying, once again, to reverse the burden of proof unjustifiably. And it's an insecurity, man, about what you believe. And you really, really need to do, if you're going to be a good apologist, you better start giving some of that security about what you believe, to the point where you think any proposition you give should have a defense. I know I tried when I was a theist to do that, and I felt a lot more honest about it, because then when I got to the point, this point doesn't really have a defense. It doesn't have evidence for it. And that's when I realized that there was a problem with Christianity. So I do have to ask, were you really an atheist? Because you show all the evidence of somebody who had a caricature life of what an atheist was, and now you're attacking that to justify your current belief. Just something to think about. Well, that's it for this one. I'd be interested in your thoughts, but I just saw this and I said, this is so typical. I dealt with this with Pastor Joe. I've dealt with this with every person who gives advice on how to witness to atheists that I've done as a reaction. It's the same tone. Demonize the atheists to your listeners so that they don't ever question their own beliefs, and then, give BS reasons of why you shouldn't even engage them, and only look for the ones you can engage with and maybe get a win and get an easy notch into that gospel gun. And it's crappy advice and it's bad hacks. It just is. So I'd be interested in everybody's thoughts in the comments. Thank you very much for stopping by. I always appreciate every like, share, subscribe. The mission of this channel is to normalize atheism and deconversion, and that's why I react to videos like this, where they falsely represent what atheists are, and what deconversion is about. And so I do that. If you want to support that kind of mission and work, then you can super chat, and super thanks, stickers, direct donation through my PayPal account. But the best way, of course, is to become a member and give me some monthly support every month. So I want to just take the time out to shout out and thank my citizens, my Rabyd citizens, and my Tribunes. You guys are the ones that really make this channel work for me and really motivate me every day to do it. So thank you very much. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So make sure that you spend all your time, money, and opportunities building up yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. And don't waste it on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. You'll be much happier if you do. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.